Hey crafters, it's me, Jen Evers with Quality Crafts, and today I was looking at Christian card makers over at Facebook and also a whole bunch of YouTube videos today trying to find some really fun and cool, old yet let's bring it back and make it new techniques for card making. And they have a challenge at Christian card makers on Facebook to make a card with a hole in the front. So it's kind of like you're seeing through to the inside. And I thought I'd give that a chance or give that a try, and also share a whole bunch of the techniques that I learned along the way and make a little fun video for you. So it's going to be a tutorial packed with all kinds of fun little, and I'm saying little because literally they're going to be tiny, kind of like inchies and twinchies. And if you don't know what those are, stick around. You'll find out. So meet me down at the desk and let's get started. So here's an example of what we're going to make today. And along the way, you'll learn how to do a whole bunch of different techniques. Some that you've already seen before. A lot of them are super easy and relatively simple that any beginner could do. And then the more you know, the more advanced you are, the more things that you can add to your card. So let's get started. There's a lot of different elements to this card, and I made mine with this thick watercolor paper that I had, but you can use any kind of cardstock or paper that you have laying around. And to make the hole into it, it's separated. There's two separate pieces there. To make the hole to it, all I did was put that inside, make sure that it dropped all the way to the bottom, and put my fingers on the side here to make sure it was relatively centered. It's not going to be perfect, but I don't mind. And then that will fit on the top of that one, and then we're going to color it. So the background of this one I made kind of a yellow and an orange, and all I'm doing is using some water-based markers, and I'm just using my Tim Holtz ones because I have a lot of different colors. You can use any kind of markers that you have, and I'm just going to draw it right onto my mat. Just putting some color down, and then I'm going to spray it with some water. The more water you get, the wetter the paper will get, and the more the color will smear around. And the less water you put on, the more dry of a look you're going to get and less mixed color. I like that, but I'm going to wipe this down and I'm going to add more orange because I want a little bit more orange to the top. And you got to remember when you're making these, if you're going to do the hole in the center, that you're really focusing on this center part of the card, not really the outsides. So there you can see the orange really hit on there. I'm just going to give it a spritz of water because I don't want it to be a real stark, what do you call it? I don't want it to be real contrasting. I want it to be really blended in. So just to move that color around just a tad bit more, I'm just pulling out a water brush that I have sitting here. And then anytime that you get it to the way that you want it to look, you can let it air dry. I do not have the patience for that, so now if you watched me as I did that, I heated it until it flattened back out all on its own. Okay, and the next thing I'm going to do, first I'm going to make sure that this matches. My last one didn't. It was a little bit off. As you can see, there's a little bit on the top, so I'm just going to take a scissors and cut that right off. Okay, and just like last time, this is a smaller piece than on this side, so I'm just going to make that the bottom, or the top, as however you see it. I'm going to flip this around because I want the orange more on the top. I think that looks cool. And then the top side, on this one I made it blue and purple, so I'm going to stick with that same theme. If you want to know the colors of the markers I'm using today, I'm using a, mustard seed, and where's the name on this one? Spiced marmalade. Mustard seed and spiced marmalade. And now for the top part, I'm using faded jeans and dusty concord. I want more more kind of bluish than purple, so I'm going to put blue right through the middle. And then I'm going to put a little bit of purple on the top and the bottom. Now this one I did twice when I first made it because the color was really faded, like almost a pastel, and I didn't really want it to be that light. Yeah, you can totally tell it's going to be pastel this time too. Okay, so let's heat this and then redo it. This time around I won't add as much water. You can experiment with all the different colors that you have laying around. I'm satisfied with the way that looks, so I'm just going to go ahead and heat that up. So every time you make these, they're going to turn out completely different. As you can tell, the background of mine had a little bit more purple in it, maybe just a little bit less blue. So I changed that up, and you can tell that there was a little bit less orange in that last one. So every time you do it, it will be like very unique. Okay, now this one I went ahead and embossed it, which is how I got that raised effect in that dark color. I'm going to show you how I did that. But I'm going to emboss this one in a slightly different manner and not use the exact same thing. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to offset that color with the same purple that I did last time. And what it was is Dusty Concord, which matches that purple marker. And I have the ink for it. So I'm going to lay it on a piece of scratch paper. And then I'm going to ink up this brayer. I'm going to just roll off just a little bit of it. And then I'm going to just brayer right over the top of it so that it comes in contact with just the raised parts. Now, if you push too hard, like right here, you're going to get purple on the inside. But if you are really gentle with it, you shouldn't have a problem getting just the top parts. And then I just use a baby wipe to quickly wipe off my brayer so that if I grab it again later for another color, I don't end up with a mud puddle. And I'll recap that and we'll move on. So before I glue this, or I should say pop dot, pop dot it up. I don't use pop dots though, but that seems to be the thing that everyone uses. I'm going to use this tape. We're going to decide what colors and what kind of sentiment we want in there. And I've already pre-cut a bunch of flowers and butterflies and stuff here. I'll pull them down so you can see some of them. I use my Silhouette Cameo. Now, another way to do that if you don't have an electric cutter is to use all those teeny tiny punches that you have. Many of us have little punches laying around that we're like, well, we don't really use a lot of them. Some of them have stars, some have hearts. It doesn't really matter what you use. But I really like the way the black, the background does black like that. So I'm going to go ahead and pick a couple that I think look good. And then I'm going to color them black. Now I could have cut them out black, but I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. So I wanted to make sure that I did them in white so that I could change the color if I wanted to. Now I want more of this one to show up, and if I put it underneath, it's going to get covered up. So I'm going to put this one on the top. I think that'll look really cool. So I like these two. I'm going to go ahead and color them black. And the quickest way I know to do that is to use any type of black marker that you have. I'm going to go ahead and use my black Spectrum Noir because I know that'll bleed straight through the paper If it doesn't and you're using a regular marker, you might have to do the edging, you know, like doing this on the sides. But if you use a marker that's alcohol based that'll bleed through the paper, you won't have to do that. But you don't want like white pieces hanging out because that'll look funny. And if you're using your punches, like I said, you definitely would just go ahead and punch it out with black paper. It'd be so much quicker. But this is a way that if you do it with white paper, you can color it any color you want. I could have colored it to match that. I could have made them a deep purple if I wanted to. Okay, so then I'm going to put them under again. Make sure that they're placed exactly where I want them. Okay, and this one's going to go on the top, but this one's going to stay here on the bottom. So I leave it right where it is, and use my little tiny tipped glue thing here to just glue it down while it's sitting there, so that I don't have to lift it back up again and chance, you know, losing my placement. And I'll go ahead and I'll just cut this piece down, and then I'll add this one. I think I'm going to do that very last, just so that I don't end up wrecking all this. So then I'm just going to flip this over to, you know, so that it matches up perfectly, and I'm going to cut some of this, but I need my non-stick scissors for that so that I don't ruin a pair of good scissors. And I cut them really thin, and I cut 4 of them, 1 for each side. And this is kind of important when you're making really tiny ones, because you want to make sure that they're sturdy enough that if you mail them or you put them in an envelope or whatnot, that they're not going to get ruined. And then the last thing I do, I'm going to save this piece. I'm just going to put it right here so it doesn't get wasted. And I'm going to cut kind of a square, and then I'm going to cut that square into 4 little squares. And the little squares I'm going to put on the corners. And that way you've got practically the whole thing covered, and it was really easy. Now, the one thing I neglected to mention right away in the beginning is the fact that these are actually Twinchies. I did say that if you watched my video, you would find out what inchies and Twinchies are. Well, inchies are 1 inch by 1 inch pieces of art, and Twinchies are 2 inch by 2 inch pieces of art, and these are Twinchies. They're 2 by 2 inches. And I'm going to just match this up on the side as close as I possibly can. And I'm a little bit off, so I'm just going to go ahead and line that up. No one's going to see the bottom, so if you're just cutting from the front, that will take care of making sure that it's even as you see it. The back really doesn't matter because you're going to glue it to something else. At least I am. I'm going to use them as art to make cards. You could make teeny tiny cards, or you could add these onto some really big cards. Now when I put this on here, I'm going to need just a teeny tiny piece on the top of each one of these. I'm going to see how small I can get this stuff. I bet I could probably get a tiny little piece for each one of those. Just want to make sure that they're going to be hidden. And I know that you can get this stuff in black too. But I get mine from a dollar store up in the Northwoods by my sister. I know I've mentioned that before. That place actually stopped selling it, so I got it from another place up north in a little town called Phillips. I don't know if they still have it or not. I never go there. I just happened to be visiting some family and noticed they had it, so I bought a bunch. Oh, I put it on the wrong side. That's alright. This stuff is pretty forgiving. Okay. And then the part that's going to touch this paper, I'm going to put a little bit of glue on. That was too much. I just know because it's going to leak out. Alright. And a little bit on that. Yeah, I originally had it the other way around, didn't I? That's okay. I'll put a little bit down here. This stuff dries pretty clear and pretty matte. It's just Aleene's tacky glue. It's not like that jewelry glue that dries really shiny. You don't want it to dry shiny because that way if you make a mistake, you're totally going to notice it. That looks pretty cool. I did change this around. I had it flipped the other way, but I'm going to put a sentiment right here. I've got a couple of stamp sets here that have some kind of teeny tiny things. So I either want hey or hi. Something that's small that's going to fit there. Let's see, this one is pretty tiny. Those are a little bit too big. I'm going to go with the hi. That's pretty cool. Or maybe the hello. Nope, let's do hi. And for this one, I'm going to use black paper. I'm going to use my homemade stamping tool. And I'm going to, it doesn't really matter to me where this falls, but I'm going to emboss it in white embossing powder. So I've got that right here. I keep my embossing powders in little containers. So that it makes it so much easier to pick it up. And I have a teeny tiny Versamark pad here. So I'm going to ink it up with that clear sticky ink. I'm putting it right in the middle of this paper because I believe I'm going to cut it out, and I might even cut it out as a little circle because I'm thinking a circle would look kind of cool there. And then put some powder on there. And heat set it. And we're going to want that to sit like right there. So let's try a little circle. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to close this up now that I'm done because otherwise that powder will get everywhere. So when I initially made this card, that thinking of you just didn't work out, so I ended up, see, you can tell I cut all the way around it just so it didn't overwhelm that card. I might have to do the same thing with this, but I'm going to try first just cutting it out in a circle. I might even be able to get away with cutting it out in that teeny tiny one. Nope, I'm going to do the big one. I don't want to miss that whole exclamation point. Okay. Yep, and see, if I put it on there, it's going to be totally overwhelming. So I think what I will do is I'm going to cut around this outside piece here. And leave that so it goes in the corner. And I'll show you why. I'm going to hold on to it. And see where it makes a corner right there? I'm going to cut that corner off and see how that looks. That looks pretty cool, but I'm going to just cut out the rest of this H, and I think that'll make it good. Okay, so the only thing I have left to do is to just put a little bit of glue on there and glue this down. I just want to make sure that it lines up with those corner edges pretty well. So there you go. That's how I made that one. I hope that you learned something today, or that some part of that little creation was a tip or a trick that you didn't already know. And I'll see you guys next video.